Despite fighting only once in the last 6 years, Nick Diaz is confident to make his not-so-anticipated return to the UFC later this year. The UFC veteran has a really peculiar demand as well. He wants a fight against welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. Don't know about you, but maybe he's been taking a couple of hits again, if you know what we mean. Keep watching this video, as we're going to tell you everything about Nick's unlikely return. First up, why even come back? We don't have anything against Nick Diaz. We actually think he's done a lot for the UFC, but honestly speaking, you should know when to hang the gloves up. He's only fought once in the last 6 years, and he wants to make a comeback against the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the promotion? Could someone please do another drug test again? No, really, he's been winless in his last 4 fights. It's been more than a decade since he actually won a fight, 11 years to be precise. So it doesn't make any sense why Dana would even consider his proposal about a comeback fight against Kamaru Usman. And even if Dana lost his mind and agreed to it, we think Kamaru accepting the fight would be just as delusional as Nick. But hey, what else can we expect from the Diaz brothers, right? One of them was pictured peeing outside the UFC Athletic Center, whilst the other wants to take on a champion after being absent from the promotion for 6 years, courtesy of a failed drug test. And you might think we're being a little too hard on Nick, but honestly, we expected him to be more mature. After all, he is the older brother. So all this just has us wondering, why even come back? He's 38 now. We kind of think he should be looking for other openings at the UFC, like a commentator or an analyst maybe. And the league isn't what it was 6 years ago. It's an entirely different ball game. You can't even think about winning fights if you've been rusty for so long. And then, on top of all that, you want Usman, the Nigerian nightmare? Sounds like Nick has a death wish or something. Next, I don't want to do all this. The way Nick expressed his desires to fight for the title was just plain out weird. It's like he didn't even want to fight, but feels like he has to. He told TMZ Sports that he's working to return to the UFC later this year and wants a fight against Usman. Don't know what working means here, but if it involves praying to God and hoping things go well, then we hate to break it to Nick. But anyway, what we found really strange was how Nick told TMZ he doesn't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do all this. I'm 38 years old. Word for word what Nick said. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, Nick. But at the same time, Diaz said that he wants to fight for the title. Like that's ever going to happen. Anyway, we're having a really hard time making sense out of all this. On one hand, Nick knows he's too old to fight now, but then he wants to go right ahead and expose himself to one of the greatest MMA fighters of our time. And let's not even forget how, after 6 long years, he verbally quit the fight after getting knocked down in the 3rd round. He looked impressive considering he came back from such a long gap. But if you're telling the referee you don't want to continue the fight anymore, well, we don't want to keep repeating. But maybe it's time you did something else for a change, Nick. And now, shut down. What if we told you boss Dana White shut down this fight before Nick even thought about it? 3 months after Nick requested the match referee to stop the fight against Lawler, Dana had already decided the future of Diablo. He said that Nick looked really good for a guy coming back after 6 years of no fighting. What he did against Lawler was really impressive, but Dana wasn't particularly too fond about the Stockton gangster fighting again. I don't think Nick should fight, said Dana whilst talking to ESPN's Brett Okamoto. He was quick to point out that he can't really tell Nick what to do since he's a grown man, but he noticed something odd about him. Dana said that Nick doesn't fight because he loves it. He fights because he feels like he has to do it. Makes sense when fighting is pretty much everything you know. Fighting has always been Nick's bread and butter. And let's not forget, it was actually Nick who introduced younger brother Nate to fighting. Frankly speaking, it's alright to quit. You have to do it someday, right? And things aren't really the same at the UFC anymore. Guys like Kamaru aren't fighters you take risks against. We respect Nick for what he's done, but Kamaru could literally beat him to a pulp. And we don't really want that for Diablo. We'd much rather see him enjoying a few puffs at some beach house in California, living life away from harm's way. But if confidence news is what gets you excited, Nick thinks he's the chosen one to end Kamaru's title reign. Really cute though. A fighter who hasn't won since 2011 wants to take on a fighter who hasn't lost since 2013. Next, in other related news, a long-awaited update. Alright, we might get some hate for this, but it's the truth, and we always tell you the truth. There are basically two types of UFC fans. Fans who have been a part of the promotion's entire journey, and then you have the post-Conor era fans. Believe it or not, that's a thing. Whether you're a big fan of the Notorious or not, he brought a lot of eyes to the game. The UFC saw an influx of fans, more PPV purchases, and more tickets sold, all because of one man. So, a lot of you will be really excited to hear the most recent update on McGregor's return to the UFC. For starters, he looks amazing. The movement on that once broken leg looks really natural, almost as good as new, but we know that's too good to be true. The trauma will always be there. He'll always be a little worried about putting too much stress on the joint. And while it does seem like the Irishman will not be returning to fighting before 2023, you have to go check out the video he just posted on Instagram. The video got more than 100,000 likes in a matter of hours, and the way he's pushing that leg just looks amazing. So, we can sort of say that the healing process is done. Now, we're just waiting for boss Dana to schedule something really exciting for his comeback. We've been hearing about a possible Chandler versus McGregor matchup, and honestly speaking, that'll definitely be a fight you wouldn't want to miss out on. And now, I'm bored. Remember when Nate almost knocked out Edwards? Keyword, almost? He could have won if it hadn't been for his antics inside the Octagon. Like, who in the world lands a knockout strike and then, instead of finishing the fight, proceeds to point at his opponent like, "Oh, I got you." It might have not been a knockout, but it surely gave us a really cold picture. Edwards all wobbly on his feet, with Nate just pointing at him. Anyway, Leon still won the fight, but that one punch sort of became the highlight of the fight. But apparently, the #1 contender of the welterweight title had a completely different explanation for why he got caught by that punch. Leon said that he got really bored of schooling Nate for 29 minutes of the fight, so he sort of slipped and ate that punch. Otherwise, he pretty much dominated him the entire fight. Makes sense, but still, if you ask us, had Nate tried to finish the fight, the result would have been much different. Leon was clearly out of it, and we're pretty sure he isn't going to be too bored when he takes on the Nigerian Nightmare, because he won't be as forgiving as Nate. Finally, not the right guy. Despite getting a big paycheck twice thanks to Jake Paul, Woodley thinks he's not the right guy to be an ambassador for UFC fighter wages. His logic was really simple, and we totally agree with him. We don't forgive him for getting knocked out twice by a YouTuber, but still. He said that Jake can't really talk about fighter wages since he's never been underpaid. And since he's never been underpaid, all he can do is talk about it. Make sense? Think of it this way. If you've never experienced something yourself, people just won't side with you. There's absolutely no doubt that what he's doing is really worth appreciating. But underpaid fighters at the UFC just won't side with him because he doesn't really know what it feels to put your life on the line for a check that doesn't really cut it. That's it from our side, folks. So what do you think? Is this perhaps the most absurd fight you've heard of? And if it actually ended up happening, could Nick ever defeat Kamaru? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Remember, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos in the future. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.